Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, Ofer Cassif. He is a member of the Israeli Knesset representing the Hadash party. Ofer, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
And I guess, I don't know, congratulations on surviving the vote the other day. Why don't you first tell us why was there an attempt to expel you from the Knesset?
Well, according to a law that was enacted 8 years ago in 2016, which is by definition an anti-democratic law, 90 members of the Knesset out of 120 that there are, by vote, there is a procedure, a process, which I will not, dwell upon at the moment. But eventually, the 90 members of the Knesset, if they vote to expel or impeach to another member of the Knesset, that means that member of the Knesset is out. And everything began once I signed a petition organized, initiated by some democratic Israelis. And eventually, by the way, there are almost 1,000 signatures of Israeli citizens, which, and this petition is in support of the South African appeal to the ICJ. And there are two main components to this petition. One is that the ICJ should investigate what's going on in Gaza, whether there is a genocide or not. There was a debate about it, by the way, because some people argue that the petition actually says that there is, categorically speaking, a genocide. As far as I'm concerned, first of all, it's legitimate to say that, but as far as I'm concerned, the main appeal and the petition is to investigate, because the government of Israel cannot investigate itself like any other government should not investigate itself. So this is one thing. And the other thing is calling the ICJ to order the government of Israel to stop the war. And in my view, that's the most important thing in order to save lives and stop the bloodshed, primarily of Palestinians who are killed by tens of thousands, not to mention the destruction and the injured, the lack of the starvation, the lack of water and medicine, hospitals, etc. But also in order to save the lives of Israeli soldiers and Israeli hostages who've been neglected by the government, not to say sacrificed by the government on the altar of its own survival. So that's the main thing of the petition. So now, one of the fascist members of the Knesset, and unfortunately there are many in this Knesset, and in the opposition too, because it was initiated by a member of the opposition, but is trying to bypass the government from the right side. So his argument was that by signing this petition, I support armed struggle against Israel, which is totally nonsense, not to say a total lie. So in the bottom line, the request and the vote was to impeach me for supporting armed struggle against Israel, which again, it is, as I said in my speech, it is a kind of an Orwellian argument in which lies are truth and war is peace, and calling for peace and stopping a war means to support violence. That's crazy. Eventually, they didn't succeed, but just to answer, refer to what you said before, I do not see it as, something that deserves congratulations or greetings, because out of 120, 86 members of the Knesset voted to impeach another member of the Knesset. It's not a personal issue. It doesn't matter if it's me or someone else. Only eventually for one's views. That's a classic, a clear-cut case of tyranny of the majority.
So let's move from the actions of your favorite your fellow Knesset members, I guess. But give us a sense of how, I guess, alone you are in this perspective. There is, there are some who in this country who argue that those of us who are critics of the Israeli government are saying that the Israelis are a monolith when it comes to this issue of the war, citing the massive protests that we saw earlier in the year about the anti-democratic initiatives that Netanyahu has taken. But it feels like in the context of essentially a desire for retribution against Palestinians and those in Gaza, that there is a lot more uniformity or unanimity.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about that and your sense of what's going on with the Israeli body politic.
Look, unfortunately, the vast majority of the citizens in Israel have been supporting this assault on Gaza, which we have been against from the very beginning. First of all, I must emphasize that my colleagues, my comrades and I in Hadash Tal, our faction, and in some other anti-war and anti-occupation organizations and civil society, we've been all unanimously against totally the massacre committed by Hamas. Needless to say, it was a terrible carnage, a crime against humanity, actually. On top of my moral, political, and ideological opinion, I personally lost some friends who were butchered by Hamas, and kidnapped. So obviously, I want to say that we share total condemnation for the massacre committed by Hamas. But at the same time, and we've been saying, by the way, that all crimes, and there are many of them, all crimes that the governments of Israel committed against the Palestinian people for so many years, and especially the ongoing occupation and siege on Gaza, do not justify the carnage committed by Hamas. At the same time, the carnage committed by Hamas cannot whatsoever justify the massacre that the government of Israel carries out against the people of Gaza and still does, unfortunately. So, but the vast majority of the people in Israel support the assault for different reasons. Some of them because they still carried out by senses of revenge and hatred and sometimes pain. And they are actually dominated by those feelings because everybody shares the pain and even rage. But we do not allow those emotions to control or dominate us. We cling to our rationality. Unfortunately, the government of Israel, which is, let's say it very frankly and bluntly, this is a fascist government. And they've been using cynically the terrible carnage that Hamas committed as an excuse to wage this assault against the people of Gaza, and by that, to mobilize the public opinion to side with the government. The coup d'etat, the fascist coup that the government tried to pursue before the massacre, under the sugar-coated term judicial reform, is on now, but by other means. They've been cynically exploited the carnage Hamas committed in order to continue with their fascist coup. And you can see it by the attitude towards the people of Gaza, but also the ethnic cleansing that goes on in the West Bank, and the total limitation and sometimes even total elimination of basic civil rights within Israel. Do you know, for instance, that since 7th of October, it's totally forbidden to demonstrate against the war, not perish the thought in support of Hamas, of course not, nobody does, but to demonstrate in Arab cities and villages within Israel, not in the occupied territories, within Israel, it is totally forbidden and prohibited to demonstrate in Arab villages and citizens against the war and for peace. It is not only a decision made by the police, it was upheld by the Supreme Court, this liberal Supreme Court, as it were, that we, like others, went out to demonstrate in order to defend it from the coup that the government tried to pursue before the massacre of October 7. So it's totally forbidden. Arabs are not allowed actually to demonstrate against the war and for peace, including people, by the way, that their relatives are killed in Gaza. They are not allowed. We are not allowed. Even when we could demonstrate in the city of Haifa, which is a mixed city, there are Palestinians and Jews who live there. We were totally limited. We could not shout the slogans as we wanted. We could not raise the placards that we wanted. We were limited to 700 people. We couldn't march. We were compounded to a specific area without marching. The police brutally attacked some of the demonstrators for different placards they carried. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. People have been arrested and interrogated for tweets and posts that called to stop the war and expressed empathy for the people of Gaza. People lost their jobs and their studies at the university for the same things. So my persecution by the majority of the members of the Knesset is just part of a wider attitude goes on in Israel, which I refer to as a process of a fascist dictatorship.
And I would imagine this also contributes to the Israeli population's continued desire to essentially level Gaza, because there is no dissent that is even allowed to begin to sort of, I guess, grow any feelings of that there may be that there are war crimes being committed, that this is a humanitarian crisis, that there are children, men, women starving.
I must say that the Israeli society is very polarized. On the one hand, it seems that the majority, although the majority is getting smaller in my view, but there is still a majority that, as you said, that wants this assault to continue, that believe the lies of Netanyahu and his bigots in the government, that Hamas should be eliminated. We all know that this is impossible. It doesn't matter if I like it or not. Obviously, I wouldn't like to see bigots anywhere, not among the Palestinians, and Hamas is a fanatic organization, of course, not within the Israeli society or the American society or wherever. But we know that it's unrealistic. It is used as a slogan by Netanyahu and his thugs in order to find a reason to continue with the war, solely in order to keep the Netanyahu and his government in power. But why did I say that that the society is polarized? Because there are many people that protest against the war with all the limitations and the problems. There are many thousands of people who go out, especially during Saturdays evenings, to demonstrate against the ongoing war, calling to release the hostages because they are dying there. As I said before, apart from the terrible death toll and destruction in Gaza of Palestinians, the Israeli hostages have been totally neglected and sacrificed by this government. And many people, including families of victims, of Israeli victims, some of them were killed, some of them were kidnapped. They also go out to demonstrate against the war and calling to release the hostages and to stop the carnage. And the police is very brutal. Last Saturday, 3 days ago, there was a very big, thousands of people marched in the streets of Tel Aviv, including families of hostages and of the people who were murdered by Hamas, against the war, calling to stop the war, to release the hostages, etc. The police brutally attacked them. They attacked them with horses and with bats, and then, very violently, because they actually do what Ben Gvir, this fascist, racist scum of the earth, they follow his instructions, and they do whatever he likes, although legally is not allowed to order them how to behave on the ground. but practically it does, and they follow, and they just beat and arrested more than 20 people, including relatives of hostages and victims. And at the end, but so the polarization is here, and many people, Jews and Arabs, go out to the streets to demonstrate to stop the war and release the hostages and stop this terrible, destruction. And the Gaza is on rebels, and we all know that rebels. And sorry.
What is the level of understanding in Israeli society, from your estimation, about the conditions in Gaza now and before October 7th in terms of 50% unemployment, mass malnutrition, and now starvation? Because to me, as you say, I do see these demonstrations. I see them. A lot of them are focused on the hostages, which makes sense.
Cool.
But what about the, now 25 times more Palestinians, now that we're near 30,000, who have been killed? Is that the central focus? I mean, where's the level of empathy within Israel?
Part of the polarization refers to that. I mean, I'm afraid that you're totally right, and many, perhaps most of the demonstrators who call to stop the war do that because they are worried about the hostages, like I do. I keep in touch with the families of the hostages. I know some people who are kept there, and I don't know what their condition is. So I do, of course, sympathize and empathize, but at the same time, obviously, I'm totally against this assault on Gaza, because we all know, as you mentioned, the death or the starvation and all those crimes that go on in Gaza cannot be tolerated, to say the least. I mean, shocked that the international community, primarily Biden's administration, don't do anything to stop that because they care. So, and this was part of my signature on the petition. But there are still thousands of people in Israel who are worried about the Palestinians too. And I'm talking about not only relatives of the Palestinians who live there, or Palestinians in general, because as you know, the Palestinians constitute about 21% of the citizenry in Israel. Not only them, but thousands of Jews as well. Not enough. Far from being not only a majority, but even a significant minority. But still there are. I give you two examples. Two good friends of mine, which I admire and salute them more than I can say. One of them, his parents, both parents, were murdered by Hamas. Another lost his son, who was killed by Hamas. And they are both very active against the occupation and against the assault on Gaza. Not only, though also, of course, because they are worried, like all of us, about the hostages, but also because they care about the lives and well-being of the Palestinians. And I salute them. They haven't lost their humanity, although they lost their dearest, parents and son. What more than that? And they are not alone. There are many like them. And by the way, they are attacked, even physically. Not only by the police, but by rightist thugs, literally sent by Netanyahu and his companions in the government.
What?
I mean, I talked, if I may, if I can, just if you allow me. Sorry, because it's painful for me. So I hope you understand that I really want to get it out of my heart. Someone who lost his daughter. She was 26 years old. She was butchered by Hamas in this party. She went to party. She was killed by Hamas. And her father told me just the other day, it was yesterday or the day before. Yesterday. He told me that he gets messages from followers of Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, etc., who tell him, we hope that your daughter was raped before she was killed. That's the situation in Israel now. And I'm not talking about one or two persons. We are talking about hundreds. And they are not only tolerated by this criminal government. They are literally sent by some of them. A political advisor of one of the members of the Knesset from the Likud yesterday went to there are few tents by the Knesset of those families. Yesterday evening, a political advisor of one of the members of the Knesset for Likud went to the tents and began to tear apart placards of those families, of those poor families. Those things go on a daily basis. And I want you to remember that the violence is on a rise, and the violence, it comes from the right towards the left mainly. We are on the brink of another political assassination like was with Rabin. I may be the victim, someone else may be the victim, but remember that very well, because we are there, and Netanyahu wants that.